the NDC's campaign launch over the weekend.
Tamale. And one of the...
Oh, I like the way you pronounce it. Tamale. You give it a...
I've been known to brothelize and butcher words.
Tamale now?
Tamale. And she said it was electric, but we're going to focus on that particular launch campaign in Tamale and what's innate for them, and will that strategy, that Tamale strategy, work to deliver the victory so cherished or much needed from the camp of the NDC? And will the accountability mantra resonate as former President Mahama is vowing or has vowed to hold his own officials accountable? We got on the phone and Zoom and speak to some resource persons. Who are we speaking with first, Ben?
Well, we have joining the conversation Dr. John Osai-Kwapong. Of course, he's a CDD fellow. We also have joining the conversation Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. Nowadays, I have to be careful. Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante. He's a political scientist. He's also director of the Center for European Studies. He's been following politics for a long while. And we have Deputy General Secretary of the NDC, Mustafa Gbande. All of them joining the conversation. Doc Mustafa, good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Good morning.
As well. And good morning to my brother, Dr. Ben. The name is Asah-Kwapong. Asah.
Oh, his also has a... So yours is Asah-Asante and his is Osai.
Osai.
Sweetie Abachi, we have to take lessons in some of these.
I in particular, I have to take one.
Dr. Asah-Kwapong, do you subscribe to that? Do we stick to that?
Yes, please.
Okay. And you said nothing up to this point in time, but we're grateful, Dr. Asah-Asante. So I think...
Normally, we don't want to bother you with that.
Yeah.
But the right thing must be done. Let's start with the very basics. Over the weekend...
And then let me also greet Moose and then Sweetie too. Good morning.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so just to lay the foundation for the conversation, over the weekend, we had what happened in Tamale with the NDC, laying forth rolling the carpet, so to speak, for its campaign. I would ask you, gentlemen, before Sweetie Abachi comes in, what are your takeaways from what happened in Tamale on Saturday? I'll start with you, Dr. Asah-Asante.
Yes, I think it was a beautiful ceremony. I watched all the happenings. It went well. That tells you that proper planning went into that. People spoke straight to the point. But what is refreshing is that the flag bearer's speech was very short, but it has a lot of things that we consider as food for thought, which we are going to interrogate and then discuss. That is my initial comment. Yes.
What about you, Dr. Osai-Kwapong? What did you make of that ceremony in Tamale over the weekend?
Yes. Good morning. Thank you very much. So again, I think it was a very well organized ceremony. I find the theme very intriguing, which is change to reset Ghana. It really looks like the NDC is framing this election as one not just of change, but giving what they believe to be the trajectory of the country, that trajectory needs to be reset and be placed on a different trajectory. So that I found very intriguing in terms of the framing of how they're going into 2024. I mean, over the year, they have made references or spoken about that sort of we need to set ourselves on a different path. But now you're seeing that direct intentional framing it of, we are just not talking about change for the sake of change, but we are talking about a change that resets the country on a different path. And it will be very interesting to see how that is reflected between now and December in their campaign messages, but more importantly, the manifestos that come out.
Mustafa
Gbande.
Yes.
Your take now.
For me, I think that the family head of the funeral. So what have I got to say? I'll wait for others to appraise that. But I think that we went back to Northern Region because we have to pick our pieces together. Northern Region used to be one of
right.
Mr. Asah-Asante, your connection is not so good. Please.
5 lines of the NDC. Post 2012, 2016.
We seem to have some challenges with...
Then we should be seen going back that. Hello?
Okay, go ahead.
Well, it appears the virtual connection to Mustafa Gbande is not that good. You know, sometimes when we try reaching you, we must try and get it as quickly as possible. Anyway.
Right, so let's get into the conversation then. Let me start with Dr. Osai Kwapong. Do you think that the Tamale strategy would help the NDC to win election 2024? And, okay.
Yeah, so,
and Dr. Osai Kwapong, if I may, yes. You know, let's take a look at some of what was said. The key highlights for you as you answer that question. Let it feed into the relevance of it, the things we heard said on the day.
You know, so for this election, it was very interesting just to see the launch in Tamale. I get the impression that this year, you know, that, I mean, if you look at the trends, you would notice that the NPP has been doing well comparatively. You know, if you compare the two parties in terms of their performance in each other's quote-unquote traditional strongholds, right, that you would see that the NPP has been doing well in the northern regions of Ghana, particularly in the northern region. Yes, the NDC still wins those regions. In the most recent election, the NPP won the northeast. But you see that improved performance of the party. I get the impression that the NDC acknowledges that reality and the fact that they would have to mobilize much harder in their own sort of traditional, strongholds. And so their path to 50% plus one come December would have to be, strategically done. And so I can see why they chose Tamale for the official launch of their 2024 campaign. Now, as to whether it would yield the political dividends that they hope for, time will tell. But it's important that they did that.
So time will tell, and you think it's a good strategy to go to Tamale. Let me throw that same question to Dr. Asah-Asante. What do you make of the numbers that pulled or came out during the weekend in support of this campaign and the strategy that the NDC is approaching, trying to win as many votes as possible in that region? And do you think that's what they need to win election 2024?
Right. I think if you look at the numbers that has been captured on cameras and splashed on TVs, right? This thing has been consistent as part of political party strategy. And in scheme of things of political science, this falls under propaganda, one of the propaganda techniques. All right. I am not saying that this is the case, but I want to give you an education about this. That if you see numbers, they reflect two situations. One, that is the real followers of the party that we are seeing. And please, this analysis, I am not by this saying that it is a propaganda tool, no. But I'm giving you instances so that when you see numbers, you don't go all out. You take it with a pinch of salt, and then that will help you, right? Sometimes it's the number. And if you, I have no doubt in my mind that the NDC has a large following. If you look at the NDC strongholds in this country, apart from Volta, the Northern Ghana is a strong area for them. So if you look at their performance over the years, that has been one of the support base of the the party. So the numbers that you see, if it is anything to go by, you realize that they are rekindling their support base, ginger them, and then they move on. They move on. You recall from early 1990s that the NDC, NPP was doing well, trying to make inroads into northern Ghana, right, which was mostly favoring the NDC. But just for the conversation, we realized that with the death of Yana, you realize that unfortunate incident, you realize that a lot of things started happening. NDC started penetrating, all right, and all that. That is one of the reasons. But apart from that, if you look at, apart from the number that we are seeing, that they are the true supporters, then it gives you an idea that, hey, the party is now ready for action and all that. If you look at it from propaganda perspective, you can also say that sometimes people are biased to these places and all that. And normally when people pose questions like, when you see numbers, is it a reflection of the situation on the ground, right? One of the answers is that in propaganda studies, we have what we call bandwagon effect.
Doc?
I think we have some trouble with Doc's connection.
Let me go to Mustafa then. Mustafa, so former President John Dramani Mahama is saying he's going to reset this country and he will hold his own officials accountable. How exactly does he plan to do that? These are not words that we are unfamiliar with. What is he going to do differently? Oh, Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante is back. Mustafa, please hold for me. Let's Dr. complete his trail of thought and I'll come back to you.
Yes, when you look at the numbers, I mean, the picture that you see, if you want to look at it from propaganda perspective, we are saying that it reflects what we call the bandwagon effect. That, yes, you see a whole lot of bandwagon effect is simply a strategy political parties employ in election to let you have a feel of the numbers that follow them, to let you know or let it appeal to you that, hey, the right thinking people are here. Why are you standing there alone in pain? So you must be, the effect will definitely be rob of you and then you follow. That is not to say that that is what happened. So normally when people ask me about crowd politics and all that, there are two explanations. Either genuine supporters who you are seeing, or you are seeing something relative to what propaganda and all that. But that said, you realize that the NDC for this election has a very strong card that they are playing. And the strong card is the weaknesses that have, the MPP is saddled with. What are the weaknesses? The weaknesses of broken promises, the weaknesses of policy failures, the weaknesses of economic decadence that we're experiencing. And if you look at the John Mahama's speech, in broad terms, they were, titled along 3 or 4 main themes: the economy, governance, social issues, and then the election itself. If you look at from economic perspective, he took a swipe about the way the economy is doing, that is not faring well. There's a whole lot of large army of youths who have no job and they cannot wait and all that. He's talking about the fact that when given opportunity, he will reset this and make it possible for young people to have job. In election campaign, you need to what? Apart from what? Calling the issues the way they ought to be called, you also need to give people hope. And that was reassuring for the teeming youth who are without your jobs and all that. Remember, another area he touched on relative to the economy is a group of people who suffered unjust treatment in the hands of the government relative to what? The banking crisis. He's saying that, look, you investigate and those who deserve justice will be given what? Hearing and all that. And their license will be given to them. My understanding from where I sit as a political communication scholar, the factors that influence voter choices, number one is the economy. So when you are going for campaign and economy is in shambles and you are in opposition, you have to cash in on that heavily.
Right.
Because, look, voters will consider anything, but the first on their priority list is the economy. Because when the economy is healthy, it robs off every sector of the state. So unemployment will be taken care of if economy is healthy. And you realize that improvement in infrastructure, which is a basic requirement that most constituencies look up to. And the Constitution has also made it abundantly clear that we deserve a fair share of that. So those issues will come up.
Doc,
and you recall the last one,
we
talk about the women's banking. Sorry, the women's banking. That you are talking about the large number of population, which is nothing but women. And most of the women at the lower level of the ladder, all right, have very little in terms of capital to start business or to engage in business. And he gave them hope. So all these things go to tell you that the party has reset itself to be able to, pursue this campaign vigorously the way it ought to.
Okay, Mustafa is joining us on phone now. Mustafa, if you can hear me. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you.
So I was asking you how the former president intends to hold his officials accountable. And then now that campaign, you've launched campaign for this election 2024. What next?
Okay, so before I do that, can I take 2 minutes just to...
That's about all the time we have to go.
Mustafa, we don't have that length of time, unfortunately. You'd notice that our show is about to wind down. So please just go for it.
He said it, and Prof have explained in detail what I would have said when it comes to when the president says he would hold his appointees accountable. Indeed, if you want to check a man, you will look at his pedigree and what he has done before. When President Mahama was president, I recall that under his government, appointees who were found or suspected to have been engaged in some wrongdoing were quickly subjected to serious investigation, and if they were guilty, they were dealt with. That is not the same under this government, and we all know that. If you look at the various research and on perceptions as to how they think this government is doing in terms of that, people will tell you that basically there's an incentive for appointees to do, as it were, what the public will call corruption. There is an incentive. Recently, a minister of state under President Akufo-Addo, in fact, a cabinet minister, positioned himself to buy public assets. We didn't hear the president say anything. But for the people of Ghana and the workers of Ghana who stood up through the whistleblower of Sami Okujato, those properties would have been sold. That cannot be said of President Mahama throughout his period as president when he was there. That cannot be said of the NDC government when we were in power. So that demonstrates the commitment of President Mahama to ensure that his victory in 2024 is not a tea party, it's not for family and friends,
right.
But it's for people who are willing to work hard for us to reset and to restore the country back to where it was. Because clearly, everybody, non-politicians, business people, children, understand that we are in a ditch. We are in a wrong footing.
Point noted, Mustafa. So what next? What should we expect now?
We are going to kickstart our campaign. We've already said it. Maybe the MPP will copy, but we are going to target serialized campaigns, community engagement, so that we will give our story. We say our story to the people of Ghana, whereas we give daily account of all the wrongs that Akufo-Addo have supervised.
All right, we do have to go. So let me go to Dr. Osai Kwapong for your final words, and then we will wrap. Our time is fast spent.
Yeah, well, we'll see how things go over the next couple of months and look forward to a very vigorous campaign season from both parties.
Okay. Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante.
Yes.
Your final words.
I think that the NDC has set the tone for a very important conversation about the economy, about governance, and the rest of them. We look forward to a healthy competition, a healthy engagement without attacks, without name calling and others, so that will be able to carry along the rank and file of the people of this country so that they can be part and parcel of the conversation. That's what I look forward to.
All right, Benjamin.
Well, I'm just going to end with this. And of course, those who joined the conversation, Dr. John Osai Kwapong, a CDD fellow. We also had joining the conversation Dr. Kwame Asah-Asante, a political scientist and director of the Center for European Studies, and then Deputy Secretary, General Secretary of the NDC, Mustafa Gbande. One thing I just wanted to say before we go. I will work hard. This is former President Mahama. I will work hard day and night to make sure we reset the fortunes of the country. Let us not lose hope. The next NDC government is the government that will restore hope and create opportunities for the youth. NDC has the men and women who are capable of turning around the fortunes of the country. Do you know why I find that interesting?
Why?
Do you remember? We have the men. I mean, yes, there's a lot of cause for, but at the same time, I'm wondering, we've heard this before.
I was hoping that they'll tell us when to expect their manifestos. I mean, for me, that's what I'm eagerly looking forward to, so that we can actually get into it.
We can get surgical.
Yeah, we can get surgical with it. But